first things first, I want to say thank you on behalf of myself and the Athenaeum for coming here and being willing to be interviewed.
Oh, you're very welcome. Glad I could be here. Thanks for asking.
Of course, I really appreciate it. And could you, in a few words, just if somebody asked, who is Rocky Fox, what would you answer that? Just to give an idea of what you do for the island.
I would say my name is Rocky Fox. I'm a native of Nantucket, and I do not seek out publicity. I am the very opposite. So when you ask me to do this, I'm always hesitant. I don't like to humble brag. I think that you get more done behind the curtain than you do in front. But I'm a big fan of the Athenaeum and the Weezy Library, so I was more than happy. And part of the reason why I did say yes to you is because I saw you volunteering, and that kind of spurred me on to help you out when you asked.
Yeah, then before I start the first question, a few years back I was volunteering for the Safe Place, and I was picking up food donations, and one thing that I still remember very vividly was Rocky Fox coming up to me and asking to want to shake my hand. He said, thank me for volunteering, and I still think about it to this day. It's a very, very touching moment for me.
Yeah. My philosophy is if you're not giving, you're taking. You know.
By the great Robert Harris.
Robert Harris, right?
Yep. So, my first question is, from diving for coins by the High Line to making strawberry daiquiris at the Bartlett farmhouses, what was your experience like growing up on Nantucket, and do you have any fond memories of your childhood?
Well, if you can imagine the High Line pulling in, right? So you have the High Line here, and you have that little jetty there. We used to dive for coins on the side of the High Line. And back when I was growing up, the dairy bar was up here, and you dove enough just to make sure you could get a burger, shake, and some fries. But I think about the liability of that nowadays. Can you imagine? And we're all little native boys too, all little brown boys out there diving for coins. You thought you were in Nassau or something like that, you know, and you'd be out there diving for coins. And just think about the liability of that nowadays. That could never, ever happen. But that's one of my fondest memories. I think growing up on Nantucket, you know, people always ask me that even to this day, what it was like growing up on Nantucket. I say it's a small town with no bridge. You know, and it really irks me when I hear kids say today, oh, there's nothing to do. Are you kidding me? There is so much to do. Take the phone out of your hand. Go out in the woods, get a stick and build a fort. You know, my parents never allowed us in the house, you know, because if you went in the house, you did chores. Who wants to do chores? I'll go outside and find something to do. And it was a smaller community too. I mean, everybody knows everybody, but like I remember playing football in the Island Home Field across from where I grew up at 145 Orange Street, and right across, it's called the Landmark House now, right? So that field, we used to play football there, touch football there every Saturday and Sunday. There'd be 15, 20 kids there, and you have all the residents up in the windows looking down, pounding on the windows, and you wave up to them, and we were there for hours and hours. And so when kids today say that, and the Dreamland was only open in the summer. You know, it wasn't open in the winter. So you didn't have access. It was the Gaslight. It wasn't called the Gaslight then. I'm trying to remember what it was called.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It was a
You know what
theater.
it was called? What was it? White Dog?
Yeah,
Maybe. But the Dreamland wasn't open in the winter. So, and there was no streaming services. I mean, you got the channels you got. You know, I always wondered why my father was a Dallas Cowboy fan growing up here, because the Patriots never sold out.
Yeah.
So they never showed their games. So you were stuck with the Dolphins at 1 and the Cowboys at 4, or the Giants or the Jets.
Yeah.
But when my son ever complains about there's nothing to do, I just look at him like, wait a minute, I had no PlayStation, I had no Xbox, and it's just a crutch for kids today, I think. And there's a ton to do here. More than enough to keep a young man, a young woman, or an adult for that matter, busy.
Can you tell me a bit about your parents growing up? Do you have any memories or experiences you have with them?
Well, my mom was a single mom. She had me. My mom never finished high school because she had me, and I was adopted by. I don't call him my stepdad because he's my dad. He adopted me when I was 6 months old. His name is J.L. Fox. And back when I was growing up, there was a Navy base here. And there's a lot of guys. My dad's from Oklahoma, and he's a Caucasian, and it took a lot of chutzpah to wed a young Cape Verdean woman with a 1-year-old son. So, I mean, that took, I can't thank him enough. I wouldn't be here talking to you if it wasn't for him. And he's the guy who taught me how to catch a ball. He's the guy who hit me in the nose with a ball when I didn't catch it. He said, "You'll catch it next time." I was like, "Okay, Dad, I'll catch it." And I caught it next time. You learn how to catch real fast when you get it one in the nose. But we were close-knit. I had a lot of Cape Verdean aunts and uncles, and if my aunt from down the street told me to get home, it was just like my mother was saying it. And we were that close growing up. And the Boys and Girls Club, it wasn't called the Boys and Girls Club. It was just called the Boys Club. And the girls were only allowed on Monday nights. So you know where all the boys were on Monday nights? Outside of the Boys Club.
Yeah.
But yeah, I learned to box there with Earl Greer and Bubba Perry. And that was only open 5 days a week. And there was no summer camp. Your summer camp? I went to the Hosteller camp when I was a kid out in out towards Nantucket. And I think it was $100 for the month. I was like $250 for the summer. And you know, can you imagine that? I think it's like $250 a day for some of these camps nowadays.
Yeah. Your dad was also involved in the softball league, right?
Yeah. They had the local softball league. Back when the Navy base was still on land and didn't wash away, there was a field there, and there was a field out in Sconset that played under the lights. And these guys are all way past their prime. That's why they played softball, right? But it was a fun league. You had guys right out of high school, and you had guys who were in their 40s and 50s who were still playing in softball, and it was competitive. Henry's sponsored my dad's team, and that's back when the Henry's had a liquor store down here next to the steamship, and he used to bring out a case of Bud, case of soda. I think I learned to drive home one night, wink, wink, from Sconset to 145, but I was probably like 13. But yeah, those were fun times. But if you went there, you better plan on being there till 11 o'clock at night. And the same thing when we used to go to 40th Pole on Sundays with your family. I mean, they packed like they were going for a weekend. You get there at 9, you left at 9. And for a kid, I mean, what else could there be? You barbecue all day, your friends come in the boat, you water ski, and you were there for 12 hours, and it went like that. And those are the things I miss the most. I'm not saying that Island got too populated out there, but I mean, there's still places out here you can find to get some serenity.
Yeah, I had heard stories that your mom was kind of like, I can't think of a better word, it's maybe the cool mom. It was kind of an open house people could come to as long as people behaved.
Yeah, but that was the case with all of my aunts and uncles. I know the Almodovars, Bo, Dino, and Dan Boy, who lived at Four Corners. Every Sunday, that's where everybody congregated. So every Sunday, if you wanted to find any one of the kids or the parents, that's where you were. That's where you went to eat lunch. That's where you went to eat dinner. And that was, if the weather didn't really go much in the January and February, but once it got warmer, that's where we congregated, and that was, that's we don't have that much. Like my family's like grown apart. I think a lot of it has to do with, when I go back what I said, there's too much to do. I mean, like my family, like my kids don't know all their cousins. I knew every one of my cousins, whether I liked them or not, I knew who they were. Like I introduced my son, I go, "Yeah, that's your cousin." He goes, "No, it's not." I go, "Yeah, that's your cousin." But sometimes we get lost when we have all this technology. I mean, it's good and bad, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. There's, this is change. It's different, Of
course.
Well, another thing I learned about you, by all accounts, you were a tremendous athlete growing up.
Yeah, I was.
And
decent.
I think, the numerous awards and trophies of the Boys and Girls Club, I think, back it up. What kind of an impact did sports have on you growing up, and what kind of values do they instill in you that you still possess today?
Well, I think when you live when I grew up, there was basketball, football, and baseball. That was the only sports. And I think girls lacrosse not girls, there was no lacrosse, there was no soccer. Vito Capizzo was our head football coach, and he played under Bear Bryant, and he called soccer commie ball. He did not like that round ball, and he was the athletic director. So soccer probably could have been brought in a couple years sooner if Vito wasn't the athletic director. But what I think athletics, especially on Nantucket, and we had a really good football team. We had the Boys and Girls Club, which you played against all your peers, right? And then at the end of the season, you'd get an all-star team. We traveled up to Pease Air Force Base every year. But I think there's a lot you can learn from athletics, teamwork, how to get along with someone else, how to learn to deal with someone who might not be at the same skill level as you, but you still have to work as a team because there's no I in team, right? And you can see, like, one thing I wish they had when I was growing up, you see all those kids getting on the Highline boat in the morning, going away playing travel sports and things like that. I wish we would have had that then because I definitely would have. Basketball was my sport, but I played football as well. I told my son if I have any regrets growing up athletically is that I stopped playing baseball after my freshman year. And that's one of the regrets. But yeah, athletics, there's so much you can get from it. You have to get, your grades have to be right to stay on a team. So athletics holds you accountable in a lot of different ways, just other than being on the field or on the diamond or on the court.
What was your favorite sport growing up?
Oh, my favorite sport was basketball by far. When I was in, Dick Herman was he was my 7th grade math teacher, and he used to have this thing called Saturday morning basketball. You had to be in 5th grade to play, and you picked teams by shooting foul shots, and you got your team, and you got points. If you won 3 games, you got X amount of points. If you lost a game, you got X amount of points. So he was teaching math through athletics, and not even like, I was like, wait a minute, did I just do algebra? How did that happen? And also what Mr. Herman taught in 7th grade was bowling. So you get this sheet, right, a bowling sheet, and you do your test, and you keep score. And oh boy, sorry about that.
It's a lovely chime.
And so at the end of the day, he would tally up your scores, and he was teaching math he'd sneak in sports and add the math to it, and you're learning like by osmosis. You didn't even know you were learning it. And back when I was in school, we had class basketball, so each room had a homeroom. We had 7-1, 7-3, 7-5, 7-7. That was 7th grade. Then you had 8-1, 8-3, 8-5, and 8-7. And every day, or twice a week, at the end of the school day, you got pulled out of your classroom to go play another class in basketball. And that was the coolest thing ever. And I remember my 7th grade class, we won the championship one year. And I remember taking driver's ed in high school during school for free and getting a credit for it. Although Mr. Sullivan, who was the driver's ed teacher, had you doing all of his chores for an hour. I mean, we're going to the post office, we're going shopping, we're going to Wisconsin to pick up his mail, we're going to pick up his kid. I go, how are we picking up his kid? How are we picking up young Philip? He goes, do you want to pass? But you know how much it costs to take a driver's ed course now? It's almost $1,000 to take it. So we got to take it during school, and you got a credit, and you smoke like a chimney. You have to deal with that. And but those are the things that I remember about high school a lot.
Is it vastly different, you'd say, the facilities and amenities now compared to then?
Oh yeah, because there was no pool. That didn't exist. The pool we had you're surrounded by a pool, my mother said, and it had salt in it. And I said, I can't swim that well, Mom. She goes, yes, salt, you'll float. So that's, I learned to swim by, oh my God, what was the name of the lady who taught swimming down here on Francis Street for years and years? She worked with, she taught everybody how to swim. Yeah, she was with the Red Cross, I believe. I wish she taught my son to swim because he swims like a rock right to the bottom. I said, brother, you live on an island. You should know how to swim. Nope, he doesn't. He's not good with it.
You've been a part of Chicken Box history for going on over 30 years now.
Right.
You've owned it for 23, alongside Packy Norton and John Jordan. The prior owner, Seaweed, used to say, the Chicken Box is too small in the summer and too big in the winter.
Yeah.
How have you and your partners been able to handle that dilemma, and what are some of the challenges and rewards you've experienced?
Well, we got very fortunate. We added when they changed the law to no smoking inside restaurants or bars. We added a smoking deck to it, which is not. It's more of a people can smoke on, but people use it for other because it's the only ventilated area that we have because it's hot as Hades in there. Like Monday night, good Lord. I heard it was hot. I didn't work, but I heard it was hot. What we've done since we bought it, I mean, we knew we were buying. It's like someone buying the Downy Flake. You're not going to buy the Downy Flake and change the donut, right? So what we bought, I mean, it's been there since 1957. It's a 5-star dive bar. You know, we don't. You know, it's a place where billionaires sit next to millionaires. Or sit next to the guy who cuts your grass. But when you come to that door, you're all equal. You know, when Willie House started the Chicken Box way back, one of the reasons why he started the business was because people of color who were servants who would come up from up south, when they came up with the people they worked for here on Nantucket, they had no place to congregate. They couldn't find a place where they could congregate as a group. They couldn't find any place where they could hear their music. They couldn't find any place where they could get their food. So at that point, he owned almost a full block of Dave Street in Pleasant. He had bought all of that land. So he owned all of that. Chins Way, he owned all of that. And he started the Chicken Box because he wanted a place where people could go. And he never segregated. It wasn't just for people of color. It was just for people, by happenstance, people started coming in because the music was killer. You know, he had deep connection with blues. Muddy Waters had played there. The food was on point, you know, honey dip fried chicken, collard greens, you name it, mac and cheese, all of that. And he said one day, I will never remember this, because when he bought it from Seaweed, every Thursday, the third Thursday of each month, I had to run out an envelope with $1,000 and $100 bills. That was the rent a month, $1,000 a month. And I remember asking him what happened when people you worked for, he came in. He goes, their money's green. I just told him, when you come to my place, just remember, I don't work for you. So this is how we're going to roll, you know, equals, you know, even Stevens. And that's the way it was. I mean, it's just, we added on. We haven't added on to it. We had to fix the roof because you got to remember the Chicken Box was built in pieces by people who worked at the bar. So it wasn't always level, you know. I mean, people used to look at the picture and the roof dipped like that. They said, how cool is that? Well, the roof was falling in. That's why it was looking like that. So we had to replace that. And then when they had the fire in Rhode Island, we put sprinklers in there. And one of the biggest things that people who've come for years, we replaced the bathrooms. You know, now I'll even go to the bathroom there, because back in the day I was sketchy. I wasn't too sure about that, and I had to work there. So we did that. We replaced all the flooring. I mean, that flooring was so old in the Chicken Box in the dance floor. When we pulled it up, there was a boiler underneath there.
Oh, God.
A freaking boiler. I mean, who does that? You can't get away with that, but there was a boiler there. So, but like I said, the footprint of it is the same. You know, we got 2 types of wine, red and white. We got 2 types of glasses, tall and small. Plastic after 9. Right? And we just made it so that it is what it is. You know, we're not going to change it. Why change it? The business formula looks fine. We don't serve chicken anymore. We got Cheetos, Fritos, and Doritos. That's our menu. You know, and if you want something from Sophie T's, go get it. Bring it in. You know, we have the 6-snack truck, which is going to be starting next week. We'll be there Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, so you can sit out in the garden and have a bite from my favorite food truck. Can't bring your drinks out there because that's a whole different law that we're not ready. We're just going to ride that out to a patio as long as we can. And that patio saved our behind when COVID hit, because believe it or not, the Chicken Box is considered the only bar on Nantucket because we don't have a food license. So when all of these laws presented themselves, when the government, the state allowed you to put a food truck out there, we had to get the food truck so we could serve some limited occupancy indoors and then have a cocktail. We didn't have bands for over a year. It was dicey there for a while, but that food court saved our butts, for sure.
What was your mindset for deciding to want to own the chicken box when the opportunity presented itself? Was it something you knew right away?
Well,
you jumped on
you got to understand, my two partners, I hired those guys. They were my doormen
Yeah.
for 5 years, and Packy left and went straight work for a bunch of years. I worked for Seaweed for the longest time. I've known Seaweed since I was 8. I used to go up to the chicken box every Sunday. When I was about 9 or 10, and you'd give me $5 in quarters, spray painted in red. And they used to have Pac-Man there, Space Invaders, all the video games, and I would shine the machines, right? And he'd give me money to play video games. And that's how I knew CB. But as I got older and older and older, I was working for UPS and I needed a second gig. So I said, you need a door guy. So he goes, yeah, you start where I start, which was you cleaned up puke, you cleaned up poop, and you just generally worked your way up. And then as I worked my way up, something happened, and a couple bartenders got let go, and I moved to a bar back, and I did that for a while. Then a couple of years, and I moved up to bartender, and I ended up doing the money, doing the schedule, doing the ordering. And so as years went by, CB was getting older. His son, Alan Reed, didn't really want to do the nights anymore, because it's a grind. He didn't want to do the nights, so I was managing nights, and then CB kept getting up. He was getting older. He was bummed that his son didn't want it, and he kept getting up on the stage saying, you know, I'm going to sell this place one day. I'm going to sell this place one day. And at that time, Seaweed owned the whole, if you go up Dave Street, he owned the whole left side from Orange to Pleasant. He owned that whole left side in a rectangular shape. So I went up, I said, finally, I was like, you know what, I've got to do something here. So I went in and said, what, are you really going to sell it? And I don't think he thought at the time that I had the funds to get it, but he didn't know what, I've been saving every penny I had. And I probably at that point had DJ'd over 300 weddings at that point as well. So I always was doing something. And I said, well, we don't want to buy the whole street. How about this piece? And so he came back, he carved out a piece and said, this is what it's going to cost. So I knew at that point I needed to rustle up some money, and I just happened to ask Packy and John. I said, here's what we need to secure the 1 point something or other. It was from the bank. And at that time we had to hustle, because our bid was 1.6 million, but at that time there was another bid of $500,000 more than we had bid, and that was by rest of soul Joe Panterno and Jimmy Buffett. Those were the other two bidders that were going up against us. I'm like, oh shit, we're done. We're never going to get this place. But Seaweed said, I'll be damned if there's going to be a Margaritaville on Dave Street. So he took $500,000 less to give it to us. But at that time, we had already been on several trips with Seaweed. He was called Seaweed because he sunk 3 boats. You know, he was Captain Seaweed because he was really good at sinking boats. So if you ever went on a boat with Seaweed, you were taking your life into your hands. But we went on, his kids, you know, weren't around. So we were like his kids by default. And, you know, he went down to Jamaica every year. He put through probably 5 or 6 young Jamaican guys and girls, and no one knows this, through college. You know? I mean, he brought the reggae scene to Nantucket, and he did a lot of stuff behind the scenes too, that, you know, when you see people doing stuff and we don't want any kind of acknowledgement, like, I'm even embarrassed to be talking to you about this, because, I mean, like I said, you get more done behind the curtain, but see if it can help someone else. If I can sit here and spit these words to you and someone else hears this and they go out and do something, because people always ask me, what can I do to volunteer? And I say, here you go. I say, start with the elderly. It's not their choice that they don't have the voice. If I have to be it, so be it, right? So you take care of them. And then you take care of the kids, right? Everyone in between, they can help themselves. So start there. And people say, well, I don't know what to do. I'm new to Nantucket. I don't know what I can do. I can't make any friends. Well, what you do is you find something you're passionate about. Because there's over 140 nonprofits on Nantucket. Did you know that? I just found that out yesterday. Find something that you're passionate about. And there's going to be another group of people who are just as passionate as you, and that's how you make friends. And then you matrix out of that, you spider web out of that, and you start something like this is great. You start here. If you're down with the library, come meet. Guess what? You meet Jim, John, Joe, Julie, and you meet them, and they're into something else, and that's how you just get out into the community. Because there's no reason that you can't find something to do, even if you're an adult or a kid. There should be no reason that anybody in this island can't find something to do.
When you decided to purchase the chicken box, did you know that you wanted to have partners, or were you thinking about going solo ever? Or?
Financially, it wasn't. I had just bought my house at the same time, you know, and new bride, new house. Hey, honey, can we take $100,000 out of the account? What are you, nuts? But she knew it was sound. You know, I met my wife on the middle pool table at the chicken box.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So she knew what it was about. And if I could look back upon it, there was too many moving parts to do it alone. Even though I was doing everything under the sun, you needed that fine. I couldn't have, like when I put my money into that account, I had $119 left in my savings account. There, you know, Nantucket Bank was ready to say, Rocky, you have a low balance. I'm like, luckily it was Bill Horahan, who was my Babe Ruth baseball coach.
Nice.
And you know, when you went into that, and you had to secure that loan, they look at you, when you're a bartender, they don't take in the equivalent that you're making cash. They think you're making $6 an hour and you want how much money? And that's when being from a small island and people knowing what we were buying. We weren't trying to buy something and then try to start it up. They knew. It was kind of a turnkey for us almost. But it was, you know, that first mortgage payment was a reach. I had to bartend for a while until someone goes, I'm not tipping you. I go, you tipped me last month. He goes, yeah, but you didn't own it last month. So, you know, they never wanted to tip the owner. So I had to work there. I had to work there for we all did for the first 6 months just to get some money in the bank so they don't foreclose on my house or make enough money to that. You know, it was scary for the first year.
When you guys first started, was there a bit of like trying to figure out your guys' roles, or has it been rock steady ever since?
Well, the thing about it is the roles, they pretty much stayed the same over the years. We've always had this thing at the box. There's 3 of us, so 2 votes count, right? So, and don't complain about it because, you know, just because what you were thinking was a good idea in your head, if your other 2 partners didn't agree with it, you went with it because the next idea that comes up might switch. And that's always been our business plan. 2 votes counts, and here we are 23 years later. There's been a lot of the places that have come and gone in those 23 years. But you know, our secret is don't serve food.
Really?
There's no money in eggs, and the hours stink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what CB told me. There's no money in eggs, and you have to get up too early to serve them.
Huh.
So that's what we, and one thing he did say, he said, it says 12-1 on the license. You stay open to 12-1. Because you never know if somebody's going to come to the bar for the first time, and if your doors are closed, they're just going to go to the bar down the street. And back when I was growing up, when all these places closed, they didn't all close at the same time, especially places there was a lot more places to eat back in the day in town. So, you know, Size would close for 2 weeks, you know, the Brotherhood would close for 2 weeks, but they would never close at the same time. So there was always some place to get something to eat in town for the people. That's when all the workers were in town, right? They weren't out of town. That's when the police department was in town. You know, that's when everything was closer to. So yeah, and he also said, you know, like our motto is we might doze, but we don't close. But you know, we close for a month. We close for the 2 weeks over school vacation in February because that's just everyone just gets out of here. And then we close for 2 weeks after because what we found is we can't do the work that we need. Being an older building, it takes some time because it's like an onion. You keep peeling back a layer, you're like, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. And you just got to cross your fingers when you peel back a board in that place. But we've got that all done. And you know, like housing out here is a monster, so everyone's staff is overworked. So you got to give those guys a chance to, you know, build up their batteries. And so we usually close for a month, and that's pretty much the town. We're not really, I think it's 3 weeks under our license that we're allowed to close, but you know, no one's gonna go hungry if they can't get Fritos, Cheetos, Doritos from the chicken box if we're closed for a month, okay? You can go down the road to Bill Puda's place, the fairgrounds, if you're that hungry and you need Cheetos. He's got those there as well.
From everyone I've spoken to, the first thing they mention about you is how much you give back. as we've already talked about earlier, but the late, great Robert Harris used to say, if you're not giving, you're taking. What inspires you to volunteer, and what do you believe are the benefits or reasons why others should get involved in volunteering as well?
Well, when Robert said that, he wasn't sick. He was a proud black man from down south. And he got sick, and he had to stay at home. And the first thing we had to get him Meals on Wheels, and that's when Sherry Hunt with Elder Services is huge on this island. And he was stubborn because he was a great cook. He didn't want someone cooking for him, but he came to the realization that he needed that, and he also needed someone to help him bathe. And not, if you're not going to get a proud black man be able to feed him, you really ain't going to get him to bathe him. But he needed that, and that's where I started with my volunteer work, and that morphed into my daughter, who's now 26 years old. When she was in kindergarten, I started volunteering at the elementary school in pre-K. I only do pre-K because I could do that math. I mean, you go to second grade now, they ask you to do the math. I'm like, well, take this column, move that column. Wait, what happened to carry the one? You know, that's not even existent in the schools anymore. I can't even do that math anymore. But that morphed into that, and that led into being on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Club, because I have empathy, and when I feel for someone, like the elderly, they're also proud people, and they don't like asking for help even though they need the help. And there's so many services on Nantucket for people who are elderly. So if you're elderly and you're listening to this right now, reach out to Pascon. Reach out to Sherry Hunt, because there's people who want to help, are willing to help and have the time. I'm on Pascon. I go to the Island Home. I have a client there once a week. Come to find out, well, not come to find out, when they paired us, he was my 5th grade basketball coach at the Boys and Girls Club. You might not remember what he had for lunch, but he remembers the game we lost when I was in 5th grade. I'm like, how the heck do you remember that?
Yeah.
And I have the time. What the Chicken Box has allowed me is idle time, and I don't like being idle. You know what I mean? When I can help someone out, I want to do that. And I might need those services someday. And I'm trying to instill it in my kids, and by just osmosis, my son and my daughter do that without me even have to tell them. Well, and I also learned a lot from rest her soul, Robin Harvey. She did a ton in this community and she always said, you get more done when no one sees you. And the more the people see you, the more they're going to ask you. I'll help you out till the cows come to pasture, but don't ask and beg of me. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying it's not easy, because a lot of times when I did Meals on Wheels, I'd be going to people who I used to serve in the bar. Like, where you been for a while? But who knows? He was homebound now, or she was homebound now. And they have a lot of pride, the elderly. But once they get past that first initial couple visits, then they won't let you leave. But then you got to leave, because, if you're not there at 11:25, Mrs. Smith's like, where you been? I'm just 11:25. I go, but this is dinner. But it's the conversation that they want, and that they need, because people, and I think people, they have all the knowledge, right? And they're just dying to give it away for free. So why not sit there for 15, 20 minutes and, strike up a conversation and find out what's going on, what was it like? And a lot of times, you might be the only person they see that day, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's easy for me because it's not a chore. And I wish I just got off my school committee term, and they asked me to do it again, but it was a 3-year commitment. And the reason I didn't want to do a 3-year commitment, because I couldn't coach the Boys and Girls Club anymore because it conflicted. And I coached the Boys and Girls Club for 20 years, and that broke my heart that I couldn't do that anymore. But since then I'm now on the Disability Committee. I'm on the Council for Aging Committee. I'm not doing nothing, but I'm still got my fingers in the water a little bit. And so I think I'm pretty full up now.
You're also trying, aren't you going for the scholarship committee as well?
Oh, I submitted my name for the scholarship committee because I wanted to keep my name in with the school. That will be announced tonight. There's 3 awesome candidates. If I get chosen, I get chosen. If I don't, I'll find something else to do. I'm also going to be serving on the parent-teacher council for the elementary school. They asked me to come back to that, and I'm like, sure, I love that grade. I've been in the parent-teacher council for the elementary school, the middle school, the high school, and I was also in the parent-teacher council at UMass Amherst as well. And now my son's going to Bridgewater State. He goes, Dad, I'm good. You don't need to join the parent-teacher council there.
How do you feel about the changes that have taken place on Nantucket over the years? Are there aspects of the island's evolution that you appreciate or miss?
I appreciate that I can still make a living to afford to live here. The aspect I miss, I remember when people used to complain and moan about doing the Nantucket Shuffle, when they had to move seasonally from home to home. That doesn't even exist anymore. You know, the housing situation here is like the sun, right? Everything evolves around housing out here, whether it be teachers, nurses, doctors, firemen, policemen. It's almost like the middle class is being eviscerated. And that's the part that I miss. And I could sit and talk all day about the weekly rentals and what those have done to the island, but I can't tell someone what to do with their home. You know, my family, due to lack of proper tax preparation, have lost 5 or 6 houses out here, because what happens when the people pass away and they don't have their stuff in order? I mean, that tax you get is a mother, you know. So people see dollar signs and they want to cash in, but as a result of that, my kids don't know this, so if you're listening, Katie and Tony, in my will, you can never sell my house. You can only rent it. And that's ironclad. Because, you know, why sell it? You know, why not just, when I pass, or my wife passes, that the first thing will be paid is the mortgage, right? So they can make a living for the rest of their lives. If they want to come back and live here, they have the opportunity to. And that's the thing that you see young teachers out here being on the school committee and seeing all the openings that are on there. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart that these young teachers who can't afford to live here and they're living in. One of the teachers said she lived better at her college than she does on Nantucket, and that's sad.
That is sad.
So I think that it's the housing that, and I'm not sure how you fix that. I mean, the horse is out of the barn on that, pretty much. You know, through the grace of God, you know, some of the people out here who have homes have reached out to Dr. Hallett at the school and said, listen, you know what? I have availability. How can I help you? So if you're listening, you have any availability for teachers who sure could use it. Because, you know, you get down to that, and it's a deal breaker. And there's a lot of people, and you hear about the teachers, but you don't even hear about the admin who are looking for houses too, or places to live. And that's the sad part about it, because you have people who live here, who've been living in homes for multiple 10 plus years. All of a sudden, they think that their place of their housing is secure, but the owner decides it's not the parents who sold, now it's their kids who own the house, right? And they're like, hey, wait a minute, I can make what out on Nantucket? And you're losing a lot of good people. I mean, I was on the boat coming back from Hyannis, and there were 7 people I went to high school with who now live in Plymouth.
Wow.
Whose parents used to have a home here.
That's sad.
Who have to commute to the place where they grew up. You know, it's pricing the middle class out. You know, and I got lucky that my friend Chris Ferreira, Wolves Ferreira, the basketball coach, I bought into Bailey Clover Development, it was called, and I remember when they bought the house, it was a 5,000 square foot lot, modular, no second floor finish, for $280,000.
Wow.
And I cried to the bank. I'm like, it's what? Another time, I've been broke twice in my life. Once when I bought my house and once when I bought the chicken box. And then just last year, my house got assessed at $1.6 million. I'm like, wait a minute. Like Nat Lowell said at the town meeting, he goes, anybody buy a house in the last 5 years? And all these people raised their hand. He goes, congratulations, you're now a millionaire. Oh, by the way, but you can't afford to sell your house and buy a house in Nantucket, so stay where you're at.
Yeah. Do you notice the sense of community? Has it changed in the time since you were younger to now, or do you think it still is a tight-knit community?
I think that it's not as tight because there's too many different groups, you know what I mean? When I went to school, I was the only African American in my grade.
Wow.
Of 64, there was no other people of color in my grade. You know, there were people of color in the school, but I think there might have been one or two cats from Jamaica. There was no people from, you know, Dominican Republic or El Salvador, or the only person I remember coming from anywhere from where the Spanish accent was Yuri Vega, and he was an AFS student. And the reason why he came to Nantucket because he was a soccer player, and guess where he lived? He lived with Vito Capizzo, who made him the kicker on our football team. But you know, I think how the question you asked is it the tight-knit community? But there's so many microcosms of community on Nantucket now, right? You have the Jamaican community, you have the El Salvadorian community, you have the Spanish-speaking community, you have the Portuguese community.
What about the Cape Verde community?
The Cape Verdean community is not as prevalent as it was when I was growing up, just because people either moved off island or all the aunties who ran that show have passed away, because you know those aunties ran the show. Like I said, if my aunt told me to say do something, it was just might as well my mother be saying it. But that has, you know, that's gone wayside now. You know, people want to celebrate. Like my sister's going to New Bedford over the 4th of July to celebrate Cape Verdean heritage. They tried it, but it's just not enough people who want to put the time in, because you know, doing something like that, it takes work. It takes work.
Speaking of Cape Verde, what's the secret to a good jag?
I'm a killer jag.
I know. What's the secret to a good jag?
What's the secret to a good
jag?
jag?
Is it the sauteed onions you do, or is it the...
It's a pinch of this, a pinch of that, my Nana said. I said, Nana, I'm looking at the spoons. There's no such thing as a pinch. She goes, my secret to my jag is low and slow, you know? And you gotta have Gasper's linguiça and Uncle Ben's rice. And you gotta put 3 bay leaves in. And
for the people who don't know, what is a jag exactly?
Jagasita is a rice and beans dish. It's 2.5 cups of water. First you put the bottom of the pot, oil, half an onion, saute it until they're translucent. Add 2.5 cups of water, beans of your choice with the liquid, linguiça, 1 pound of Gasper's linguiça, or what they have up here, onions, throw it in there, bring it to a boil, add 2 cups of rice, cover it on low, salt, pepper, garlic powder, bay leaf, cover it for half an hour. Don't open the pot, or your aunties will be up in your grill on that one. I'm like, this isn't done yet, and don't open the pot. And it all depends on your heat, because I just got a new oven. And the stove, it's too high. I can't get it low and slow, so I have to put these 2 things I got off Amazon. And you just let that sit for half an hour, right? Take it off. Oh, and 3 tablespoons of paprika, which gives it the color. And can't forget that. And after that, you take it out, fluff it, good to go. And the thing about jag is it goes with everything. Goes with eggs, goes with steak, and it's always better the next day because it's a starch, right? Any kind of starch, my mama said it always tastes better the next day. And it lasts for days, but it never. Well, my daughter's coming from all of her friends from UMass Amherst, 7 girls, and the only thing they want is to go to the brewery. They don't want to even go to the chicken box. They want to go to the brewery, and they want to have jag when they come home. And that's been going on since they were in college, so I should probably go get some linguiça after this.
I had talked to numerous people, and they all said that you had the best jag on the island.
Oh, I do.
Oh, you know it too.
Oh, yeah, I know I do, because you know what? Not many people make it anymore. That's an old old Cape Verdean recipe. And you know, it takes $12 to make it, and you can feed 8 to 10 people. You know, $12 to make, half hour to make. And when I was asking about the community back when I was growing up as a kid, we used to have a thing called a Portuguese pot. And it was one of those big old pots. Remember those back in the day when you used to light that stove, that pilot light? You used to have to get under there, and it used to be that flat stove, and it used to stay lit all week on low. So each week, my Aunt Verna, that was Ahmed Oba's mom, whatever she had for the week, whatever leftovers, went in that pot. Went in that pot. Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, went in that pot. And on Sunday, that's what you ate. And it was delicious. Except for the pig's feet. The Portuguese like them pig's feet. I couldn't get down on the pig's feet.
Yeah, what is it that you'd substitute pig's feet for?
Ham hocks.
Ham hocks. Yep.
Yeah, I'll stop there. From there, nah.
Interesting. What was another dish that you didn't have the patience to make? Was it marchupa?
Oh, manchoop.
Manchoop.
That comes from you have to get it. Augie used to make the best manchoop, but he used to always make mine separate because he didn't put the pig's feet. But it's called samp. It's a binding agent, but you couldn't get it on Nantucket. You'd have to get it from New Bedford, and you'd always bring it over. That's one of those like slow and slow. I don't have the patience for that. But that was another great dish, manchoop. My Aunt Viola still makes that every once in a while.
Can I ask you a few kind of, I don't want to use the word quick fire questions?
Sure.
All right, let's go for it. What's one of the most memorable performances you remember at the box?
When the Whalers played.
Really?
Yeah.
When was that?
You were probably 8.
Probably, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah. when the Whalers played, yeah, that was one of the best ones.
Is it true that you once scored off a jump ball in
Yep,
basketball?
I scored for back. I tipped the ball in to win the game from a foul shot line, jump ball. Never forget it. Against Nauset. Against Sandwich.
Wow.
Sorry,
that
against
was
Sandwich.
Quick. Knew
Sorry.
that.
I remember that one. Yep. They don't even have jump balls anymore. That's how old I am.
God, yeah, I know. That was. I was surprised to hear that. If you had a complete guess, what year do you think the time capsule at the box will be opened?
The one to be put underneath there with Seaweed's ashes
Yep.
and his reefer pipe.
Yep.
We put his ashes in there, his marijuana pipe, a couple of his creations. We put an Inquirer mirror of the date. That floor is solid now.
Yeah.
I mean, we put a lot of money into that floor.
Yep.
Like when the engineer came, he goes, ooh, ooh, ooh. I don't know. That's a good question. I would say, I hope that it never. I'm not sure what's going to happen to the chicken box after we pass, but I know that we've always wanted to keep it in our families somewhat. I would say, 100 years. Who knows?
100 years. All right. I like that answer. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received was pause, breathe, relax, repeat.
Speaking of relaxing, what's your favorite way to unwind and relax after a long day?
Now, in
Yep.
general, on my new couch. Well, now that we've gotten into the chicken box, we were able to hire a manager who works nights, so I don't have to work those nights. I don't mind just sitting at home and just watching TV. I'm a big TV person. I know my mom used to say TV's a conversation killer, so get outside. But yeah, just sitting at home. I don't have a boat. I don't golf. Relaxing to me is going to doing community service. That's relaxing to me. Like going to the island home and hanging out with my guy. Reading the 1962 high school yearbook. And next thing you know, you have 5 other people who went to school and say, "Hey, can you get 1963?" That's relaxing to me. That's where I find the most enjoyment and relax. But I don't mind sitting on my couch, not at all.
What's one thing on your bucket list you haven't accomplished yet?
I haven't appeared on SportsCenter. I always wanted to be. I wanted to be in da-da-da. That's what I wanted to do. That's a bucket list item for sure.
All right, that's a good one.
Yeah.
If you could travel anywhere in the world right now, where would you go?
Where would I go? I want to go to Africa. I want to go through, like, see all the animals and go through one of those preserves. And I want to see mountain gorillas in their natural habitat.
All right.
That's my spirit animal, I think. Silverback. Yeah, that's what I do. Go to a nature preserve in Africa and just live there for like, you know, yeah, that's where I'd hit for sure.
That's a good one. Now I know your spirit animal too. Look at that.
Yeah.
If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Martin Luther King. You know.
It's a pretty good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I just, you know, Jesse Owens. It's always someone of color for me.
Yeah.
You know, Jim Brown. Just people who move the needle.
Yeah.
You know, Jackie Robinson. Just for, you know, when I read stuff about them, what they had to go through for me to even be sitting here with you, you know. And Nantucket was segregated when I was growing up a lot, you know. Up in Five Corners, that's where all the people of color lived, you know, up on the hill.
Was it almost like a circle to some
Yeah,
degree?
you know, that's where the Perrys lived, you know, Amadobas lived. All my people were down from Orange Street, down in that area. But yeah, just the trials and tribulations and the courage that it took to be able to withstand what they did, you know. Sacrificing themselves for others.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I'm coming up to the final question for you. It's kind of the big one. So however you want to answer it. What do you envision for the future of Nantucket? Considering its rich history, unique character, and evolving challenge it faces, what are your thoughts on how the island can preserve its cultural heritage while embracing progress and addressing the needs of both residents and visitors?
You know, it's kind of one of those things that people, not in my backyard, but there's got to be a way to incorporate some sort of housing. It comes back to housing for me, so that the average person can sustain a living, make enough that they don't have to work 4 jobs to live here. You know, some of these projects that are going on that I don't consider an $800,000 2-bedroom unit affordable. I really think that what Tucker Holland's doing on Nantucket is groundbreaking, and I wish it's the land bank who gets the percentage, right? I wish that they'd kick off some of their money, kick off percentage, and put it towards the housing Nantucket, towards Tucker's funds, so we don't have to ask for a $6.2 million override each year to find housing. I mean, and the land bank's one of the first in the country, I think I heard somewhere, and I admire what they do. I think that with all the money that they've raised, to peel off a percent, a percent to them might mean 15% to the housing, to Tucker and his group. And that is going to keep boots on the sand out here, because without the proper infrastructure of housing, you're going to keep losing those people who are vital. You know, it's not just teachers and policemen and firemen that we need. We need the guy who works over here washing dishes. We need the guy who picks up the garbage. We need all of that. We can't be haves and have-nots. You know, we want to make this a jambalaya. We want all kinds of ingredients in our soup. I don't want just broth and mushrooms. I want it all in here. But in order to do that, people have to have a place to lay their head. And then 2, the housing situation, you're not going to fix it, right? But we just can't keep putting our fingers in the dike and hope it doesn't explode, because we're at the point where it's exploding. I think there's got to be ways other than taking out $6 million a year from the taxpayers each year. I think the land bank could help a little bit on that. That's my opinion. I might take a bullet for that, but I'm willing to.
To the people who, it is a common thing to hear the NIMBY or not in my backyard, how would you convey the message and to get people that they have to be willing to sacrifice in order for the whole of the community? That's what it feels like to them to some degree.
Well, you got to realize too that a lot of these places have already been designated But down the road, I mean, some of these places have been allotted 10, 15 years ago, right? But now that it's coming to fruition, you can't move next to the airport and complain about airplane noise. Do you know what I mean? But they're complaining about a problem that doesn't even exist yet. You know, let's see what happens. Put some parameters in there, and it's going to happen whether you like it or not. Rather than create a bigger issue about this, try to work with each other. Is that person going to make money off it? Is it for profit? Yeah. That's just the nature of the game. It's all about, when they say it's not about the money, it's about the money. Okay? But we got to find a way to keep everybody on island and not just have, you don't want to get to the point where we have 6 months on and 6 months off. You know what I mean? You don't want it to be a seasonal, it is a seasonal place, but you don't want to get to the point where the guy who drives cab can't afford to live here. You know, but who am I to say that? It's not in my backyard, but I don't think that I would be one of those people who, just because I got mine, I don't want you to get yours. That's not in my DNA. You know what I mean? Let's see how it goes, and let's cross that bridge when we get to it. The bridge hasn't even been built yet, you know?
If you were asked, if you even had an answer, say somebody came up to you and said, Rocky, how can I afford to live out here? What advice would you give them, if any?
Right now, I would say cross your fingers that this affordable housing goes through, because other than that, I'm not sure how. That's why you lose so many kids who live here don't come back here. You know, they have nothing to come back to, right? There's jobs here, but there's no place for them to live. And that's why these affordable housing units are vital to the growth of Nantucket. I mean, you don't want to see people living in squalor. I mean, everyone hears the horror stories about how some of these people are living. When I was delivering for the food pantry over COVID, I was horrified, you know. And I'd go to a house and they'd say, Mr. Fox, and it'd be students who I worked with in, you know, kindergarten and first grade, and it just broke my heart, you know, to see that. So we gotta find, there's gotta be a happy medium. You know, we gotta try to find that, and, you know, you have, it's never gonna be 50-50. You know, it's never gonna, no one's that amicable, right? But I think that, like I said, housing's the sun. You know, without getting these people a place to live, I'm very worried about the island where I grew up over the next 5 to 10 years.
Would you say you're optimistic or pessimistic?
Oh, I'm definitely an optimist. I'm a glass half full guy. I'm not gonna, that doesn't get in my thought process. My kids hate it that I'm such an optimist. You know, yeah, you have to be optimistic. You know, that's like you said. Well, it's supposed to rain. Well, that's being kind of pessimistic in our interview. I'm like, no, it's not going to rain. Of course, it's not going to rain.
That's fair. That's
right?
fair.
So you got to be optimistic about it, and you just hope and pray that, you know. I mean, we're very lucky that a lot of these people have donated their land to the land bank, because there's a lot of properties that could have been built up with houses that you're like, oh man, is that really there now? So I'm thankful for the land bank. I really, truly am, because a lot of these places where we sit today and all these beautiful parks they put in wouldn't be there if it weren't for them. But slice off a little bit of pie, would you, land bank? Come on, help your neighbor out.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we're finished?
I think that if anybody out there is looking for something to do, you can reach Sherry Hunt at Elder Services, because we're always looking for volunteers there. There's always something to do. If you can't find something to do, find me and I'll find something for you to do.
That's a great answer. All right, well, on behalf of the Athenaeum and myself, thank you so much, Rocky. I appreciate you for being here, and
very much.
I think this is great. Thank you so much. 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 This is great. Thank you so much.